So I finally got a chance at long last to play Sifu. After ages of waiting for this game to come out, we finally got it in our hands after an unfortunate 3-hour wait once we started streaming, because Sony, in their ever-loving knowledge, absolutely scuffed the initial launch of the game. So I thought I would make a video going over my first impressions of the game, how it stacks up, and did it really meet expectations going in. I'm going to do my best to keep this video spoiler free as best as we can. I'm only going to show footage from the first main area that you fight in the game, being called the squats. Okay, so the main bread and butter of Sifu is the combat. And when I say this combat is brilliant, I am not in any way exaggerating that. It is absolutely amazing. It's fluid, impactful, has tons of depth, extremely punishing if you mess up, and it really pushes mastery of the system. Now, the way the combat works within the game is you use a combination of light and heavy attacks to defeat enemies and knock them out. In Sifu, you use a combination of light and heavy attacks to string together combos to defeat your opponents. You have over 115 attacks that can be comboed countless ways. In terms of defense, you can parry, you can dodge, and you can block, with L1 being your sort of main trigger to go for the parry, if you will time it, and if not, you can do a little slight weave or dodge out of the way. As well as that, you have the dedicated dodge button, and L1 also acting as the block button itself. In terms of enemy variants, what we've seen so far is you have your regular enemies with weapons, you have heavies, which take a load of damage and can fling you about the field. As well as that, you also get these acrobatic enemies, which you don't really see until the second level of the game, so I'll keep that on the minimum. And then you obviously have the bosses of the game. The main hook of the game is you have 5 main bosses in the game to defeat, with different mini bosses spread throughout. The first boss, which I'll go over just really quickly, was Mute, otherwise known as the botanist in the game. He was acrobatic, fast, aggressive. He wields a machete in his second stage, and this is something that falls through with most of the bosses to my experience, is they have the first initial stage taking place in a very normal environment, for lack of a better phrase, but as you go into the second stage, it'll go to the corresponding element, which isn't a big feature that I've gone into a lot yet, but there is this odd feature where each enemy seems to be relying on some type of element or power, similar to the way Sifu has his resurrection power. You also have the focus meter in the game, which is your sort of special move meter. As you perform your combos and attacks and defeat enemies, you'll gain focus. You can then use that focus to target certain areas that you get with different unlocks to use as punishing strikes against your opponents. And with every boss you defeat, you'll gain XP, which leads lovely onto the progression in Sifu is rewarding, with each death being a lesson, and it's a challenge to make each run goes just as far as you can possibly take it. So every time you defeat an opponent, you gain XP, and this can be redeemed then for your new moves or focus moves, which can be redeemed upon death. You can also find shrines within the world, which also allow you to invest your experience levels. And also at the dojo, your sort of home base in between stages. You can also perma-learn skills by investing more experience into them. And that ties into skills only being a part for your current run of the game. So the rough way progression within Sifu works is that you start the game at 20 years old with a pendant with 5 coins on it. Every time you die, you have a stacked death. So you die the first time, you'll go by 1 year up to 21. You die the second time, you'll age by 2 years into 23. And that will snowball on until you can no longer survive. Your pendant has limited sort of lives that you have. I believe it's around 10, but can be extended by defeating certain enemies, which will bring your death counter down. And so each time you die, you can invest these experience points into skills. And with that, then, once you die completely, the only skills you retain will be those that you perma-unlock by investing, I believe it's 5 times the amount of XP when you're within the menus. Now, this method of progression within the game, I think, is amazing. It really promotes the replayability of the game. You're wanting to go through these levels, trying to die as little as possible, while defeating as many enemies as possible to gain experience points, add to your skills, and so that you don't lose them, so that you could eventually permanently unlock those skills. The aesthetic or the art style of the game is absolutely beautiful. Scenery in every level is amazing and immersive, with each stage being unique to its environment. So like we said with the first stage, the guy has an elemental ability, which I feel will be apparent in the footage, but it is more or less a plant-based elemental power, where he can grow plants and grow shrubbery and green and earth and natural things, for lack of any better phrasing. And each stage being unique sells the atmosphere that the game tries to go off of in each of these sections really, really well. And also lends itself very well to this old kung fu movie aesthetic that the game goes for, with different scenes or camera angles being very reminiscent of older movies. To describe the game as like being each frame as a painting would be the only way I can perfectly describe it. The game is absolutely beautiful, and the art style lends perfectly into that. Not to mention the lighting and the different atmosphere effects going on in each world. The soundtrack for the game so far, I find it to be solid. The combat music is absolutely great. It really lends to the intense feeling that the game tries to go off of when you're fighting large groups of enemies or in boss fights, and just adds to the general feeling of badassery? The general feeling of badassery that comes with the full feeling of the game. Menu music is also absolutely class. I love listening to it as soon as I put up the game. You just get this really nice, traditional sort of vibe with it. Now the story, as I said, don't want to go into it too much. It isn't the main focus of the game, although it does play a surprisingly big part from what I was expecting, especially when you compare it to Slowcast's previous game, Absolver. Playthrough coming up on YouTube, and has also been streamed on Twitch if you wanted to go watch that. But it's really, really intriguing. I like the way it's laid out. I like that you have to go to each stage and find clues. As you go through different runs, you'll investigate more and more like little side areas you go into that will have more clues and expand on the world. Really, really interesting, and I'm loving to see where it goes. This also ties into what the abilities are and how that ties into everything, especially like Sifu's ability to like resurrect himself. Wait, Sifu isn't the main character of the game. The main character being able to resurrect himself is what I meant to say. Overall, Sifu so far has been an absolute blast to play. I can't wait to play more of it. And if you want to see me watch, and if you want to see me play the game, you can catch me on twitch.tv/Spectral_Vision, and you can also watch the playthrough as it goes live here on Twitch. It's going to be a great time. I can't wait for y'all to see it. And have a good one, gamers. See you later. Peace out. Ow, Jesus. Oh god. I'm gonna die here quickly. Oh fuck! Can't go in the water.